All right, folks. So the March for Medicare for All had an after party, and that was outside of AOC's office in New York. The only problem with that? AOC wasn't there. So here's a good tweet that lays this out. I want you to visualize the routes since Saturday. AOC went from Cleveland to DC. Savage Joy and others went from DC to NYC. Nick Brana and others went from Boston to NYC to protest AOC that was 200 miles away. And I've got some video from that, courtesy of Status Quo. Shout outs to them, by the way. So AOC she is in Ohio, and she goes to Washington, D.C. The March for Medicare for All Force the Vote crowd is in Washington, D.C. So instead of protesting outside her office in, I don't know, Washington, they traveled to New York City to protest outside of an empty office building. And I'm telling y'all, this shit, this is, like, it's getting hard to handle. Like, I mean, like, seriously, like, I have to bust out the soundboard for this one, because it really is, it's shocking. It is shocking. And in the words of our former president,
really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ.
Okay, so I've got this video here, this live stream from Status Quo, and again, shout outs to Status Quo, they do a great job sometimes. So they did this event outside of AOC's office, right? I'm trying to get the chat to not be, like, visible, but, you know, I guess I can't do that. You don't need to be distracted by such things. But anyway, so let's watch. So here's Nick Brana. Also, the audio here was horrible. Like, oh my god. So here's Nick Brana, the founder of a movement for a People's Party, a guy who lied about his position in the 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign, and who has basically run an authoritarian party, kicking people out of the movement for a People's Party who disagree with him on things such as strategy and direction. And what he's been trying to do is he's been trying to parasitically attach himself to podcasters such as Jimmy Dore and the Force the Vote crew. And he's trying to parasitically attach himself to that to funnel more power and energy into his party that is ultimately useless and will accomplish nothing. Why, if Nick Brana has the money and resources to travel from Boston to New York City, why didn't he just go to Washington, D.C. and make a protest where AOC actually was? Why did he go to this area, an empty office building, to do this? Well, I don't know. But anyway, he was talking some shit, so let's listen a little.
Incredible march in more than 50 cities with no corporate media coverage, no support, and not a single representative, member of Congress even mentioned it until the actual day of the march. And I don't even think that any of them have still said anything on social media. So the fact that you all, everybody here...
Now again, I don't understand this obsession with social media. Now again, like, if we had an actual March for Medicare for All that actually was trying to be productive and not being controlled by these freak shows, I do genuinely think that the squad would have talked about it. I genuinely think so. But the idea that the March for Medicare for All headlined anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorists, almost headlined a neo-Nazi, right? And then has been, like, basically being controlled and being sheepdogged by these people, made everyone else basically go like, ew. And that's something we need to reckon with. And again, there are people that didn't go to these marches, or the people that did go to these marches, because they genuinely want to do anything that they think they can to get Medicare for All. And I support going to these marches. If there was one in my area and I wasn't protesting for the thing that I'm protesting in my city, I would have tried to go to one just to try to talk to people to make sure that they don't fall down the pipeline and force the vote, right? These are good people that are being taken advantage of. And Nick Brana is a mastermind at manipulation. So let's check this out.
That pulled that off is really incredible. And you should all give yourself a round of applause.
One hell of an applause, folks.
We have some people here who are true heroes and legends in this movement who's...
Legends, folks. Legends. Like, I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. But they're legends. Whoops. And so, like, to me, like, I'm really trying to understand. Right? Again, This is a movement that, instead of piggybacking off of the already existing movement, right, that has been actually succeeding over the last 4 years, that is to say, primarying corporate Democrats and rallying them to get more co-sponsors on this legislation, that is actually working. These people are trying to do like a divergent alternative path where they use less tactics, and the same tactics that they do them worse, and the only reason that they're doing it is because they want to be the leaders of their own little fantasy world. Again, Nick Brana is trying to make a third party. That is, the third party has existed since 2016. Last time I checked, Justice Democrats has existed since 2017. Justice Democrats has been in existence for less time and has not only gotten significantly more done, but gotten literally anything done. Like, they did at least one thing. Whereas the People's Party, so far, they've done nothing. But again, Nick Brana wants to, like, basically excise everyone that's not in the People's Party from the quote-unquote movement so that he can build his own fantasy world where he's, like, the starting, like, he's the mastermind of something. I don't know. It's weird.
Stories they've been courageous enough to share with all of us, with the country, with the world. Very personal stories, including people like Joy, Savage Joy, who spoke at the Force the Vote Town Hall, who emceed the...
So, okay, the Force the Vote Town Hall. Now, again, I said this at the time. In fact, I even did an entire live stream where I watched the entire Force the Vote Town Hall. I watched the whole thing and gave live commentary on every single tidbit, right? And I said this at the time, and this was my key takeaway at the time. And it's been proven true. The Force the Vote Town Hall, quote-unquote, was literally a podcast. They got no politicians on. They had no questions from the audience. A town hall implies you bring someone on and give them audience questions. They did not do that. Instead, it was a podcast where they basically had like a marathon guest lineup of people that they were friends with to basically yell about how AOC is evil for 2 hours, get drunk, and then and then scream hashtag the vote, hashtag the vote. I want to give you a little like taste of what was going on at the Force the Vote Town Hall because I happen to have a video file of it because it's so funny and I use it in my intros. So let's listen.
They're not accountable to anyone. I get 10 to 12 million views a month and they won't come out and address my progressive audience. They won't come out and address Bree's audience or Katie's audience or Justin Jackson or you. They are not.
Now again, AOC and the squad, they've been going after and going on all kinds of media tours. They just ignore people that are crazy. This was the Force the Vote Town Hall. It was a literal podcast. It was a Zoom call. It was a Zoom call, bro. A podcast. This was not a town hall. But again, let's say you don't know this. All right, I've never heard. Oh, all you know is there was a Force the Vote Town Hall. And that's why they called it that. They called it a town hall so that it could be called a town hall and that they could and this is what I said at the time. Go watch my video from January or December, whenever this was. I think it was late December. Go watch my video because I called it at the time because I can see this shit, right? They called it a town hall because it sounds professional, and then after it's done, they can put no work into it because it was a shit show disaster where Jimmy Dore got drunk on stream and made an ass of himself and basically embarrassed the shit out of everybody, right? It was a disaster. But they don't care that it was a disaster. They care that it was called a town hall. And so then they're going to be going out there, the Force the Vote Town Hall, the Force the Vote. We went to the town hall. We did that town. Remember when we did the town hall? You mean the Zoom call podcast? What? But again, they're going to do this with the March for Medicare for All, too. They're going to do this with this, too. Nick Brana, in 6 months from now, right, is going to be going out there and saying, remember when I went to AOC's office? Remember when we went to AOC's office and we protested? They're not going to mention that AOC's office was empty. They're not going to mention that they went from D.C., where AOC was, and traveled, spent money that people gave them to go to New York City, where AOC was not. They're not going to mention that part, but I guarantee you Nick Brana is going to continue. Remember, we went and protested AOC, that March for Medicare for All, the town hall, man. The movement, the force to vote, the movement. Look at this move. These people live in a fantasy world. And again, I'm not trying to say everyone out here that does these marches is a bad person. I'm saying that those in charge, those leading and directing it, are bad people. And I think that I've done a decent job of showing you why they're bad people. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. Let's have that conversation, because I'm very interested in getting your take so that I can, maybe rethink my analysis on how to convince people like you in the future. But again, this kind of shit is weird. It's character building. It's egomaniacal nonsense. The town hall. Jimmy Dore getting drunk on a Zoom call is a town hall now? What? I'm just like, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. And they're trying to be like, Medicare for all, we're the movement now? What? I don't even know. I don't even know.